Like, hey man, we're just trying to help you make your garden better, whether it's the products we have, whether it's the knowledge, whether it's the guests. Every time we do something with an episode, Jaron's always like, hey man, how is our listener going to be a better person after this episode? And regardless of what the episode is, if it's information or products or people, we are definitely focused on, hey, how is our listener going to come away from this? And not for nothing, there's 9 times out of 10 where we come out of that episode and go, wow.
We're Jug Dealers, we're the podcast you need in your feed, teaching the game like you never seen. Jared, Gabe, Rambo, true OGs, masters of the globe, set your mind free. From Denver, Colorado, where the data's green, we set the data points for the SOPs. Jug Dealers Podcast, yes indeed.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jug Dealers Podcast, where we discuss all things and cannabis and lifestyle related, brought to you by the good people at 5-8, and we have jugdealers.net and jugdealers.shop available.
Yes, we do.
Go click the sample tab if you haven't already, because, dude, I appreciate the patience. Some of you guys have actually just gone through and just ordered some of that stuff. We love you guys. We really appreciate the support. We do. It is either me or Jayhawk who are reading the emails that we get from you guys. So we really do appreciate that.
Being that this is New Year's Eve as well, up until midnight tonight, we are still 15% off site-wide, I believe. Is that correct, Josh?
That is true.
So just, throwing that out there for the people that maybe can't wait or, whatever. And we are going to get to you.
Still got a couple hours left in the day.
Yeah, you still got a couple hours left in the day.
Sauce your base. That's if you want to try Winter, Ruby, Carbo, now's the time.
That's what we get the most requests.
And we do see you guys. We definitely see you guys. It's been unprecedented. It's been crazy, all the requests. So, but we love you. If you haven't made a request yet and you're looking for it, please do. If not, get on the Jug Dealers website. If you guys got any questions, you can also hit the comments tab there on the website as well.
We've had some good questions from some people as well, just who need some help with a couple things, and we're happy to answer. Like I said, it's either me or Jaron answering that stuff.
That's it. So without further ado, this is going to be just kind of a fun, light episode. It is New Year's Eve. Again, happy New Year's Eve. It is the last day of 2024. We will see you guys here real soon next year.
Quarter-century in.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think.
Wild to think. Here we are. I mean, I really, I'm not going to date myself that bad, but I think about, times and everything else. And it's like, whoa, here we are. So 2024, we're on our way out, but that's fine. We figured, why not do a nice year in review? We've been all over the place. We've been all over the world.
Bro,
this
you've
year.
been all over the planet.
It's been...
The only place you didn't go last year that was surprising was Thailand.
That's true. That's the one I did not get in. And there has been a lot that's been going on in Thailand. And in part is because we just had too much else going on, which I think, maybe you'll get a little bit of a taste of that as we go through this episode. But we figured what we would do is just kind of, have a free-flowing kind of open discussion about where we went, where the Jug Dealers went, where New Millennium was at over the year, and just kind of enjoy ourselves. And, thanks for coming out. Thanks for sitting down.
I was thinking about it before we sat down, and it was our first calendar year as the Jug Dealers with the,
first full calendar year.
Yeah,
no, you're right.
We had a year of shows. We celebrated that anniversary in October, but this was our first calendar year with us kind of doing things, being on the road as Jug Dealers, doing all kinds of different events and stuff. So for us, it was a big deal, and not for nothing. I mean, I think when this episode comes out, I think we'll be at 10,000 subs.
And if we're not, please hit that subscribe button because we are literally right there, guys.
We're so close. I think we're like 160 away, and I was actually looking.
No, by the time this episode drops, we crossed. Right?
We're just gonna go ahead and say that we crossed the line. And thank you so much.
Yeah, that is because you guys shared it. Thank you so much. YouTube could not shadow ban us because the Juggernauts you guys shared. Then sharing is caring.
Almost 750,000 views total.
Yeah.
So I was really impressed with that. Honestly, we couldn't do it without you guys, the listeners. So we appreciate you guys reaching out. Like I said, we do our best to read the comments, the emails and stuff like that. We'll talk about later about hopefully some inspired shows from the listeners. So.
Yep. And we're going to talk a little bit about, what went well this year, what we're going to be doing next year. But again, without further adu, I guess let's just start it off. And I guess
you were on the road early, bro.
I was on the road very early. In fact, it was the end of January 2024 is when I basically got back on the road. I went to the IPM show in Essen, Germany. It was my first time being in Germany. Had a wonderful time. Shout out to Urban Grow Dusseldorf. You guys were amazing.
Was that a cannabis centric show?
It was not
a gardening
show? No, it was a gardening show, which is one of the things things. I mean, dude, like you're talking multiple big hauls, like huge setups. I mean, I was going in and one of them's just Holland, one of them's just Malaysia, one of them's just, and I mean, the plants and the flowers and the equipment. And I mean, seeing like these little cloning robots. And I mean, dude, it was wild. And I'll post, my intention is to have a couple pictures from every little thing we're talking about here to kind of walk you guys through here. So the robot, Josh, remind me, the robot.
Yes.
We'll get that on there because that one, and it was particularly
that's
interesting.
super cool, man.
Yeah.
Like it's cool to go because I always love like European stuff just seems to be really well built, you know, very well
as it turns
thought out.
Yeah. And,
like
and you know,
everything's a BMW over there.
And again, I'm not a short guy, right? And I will say that's the only time I've ever really felt like not even of average height, less than average height.
The Dutch and the Germans.
The Dutch and the Germans are big folks. They're big folks. So, I mean, honestly, out there, Frankfurt was a whole lot of fun. Had a blast in Frankfurt. Got a day there to just kind of mess around. You know, Essen, Dusseldorf. Like I said, the guys at Urban Grow Dusseldorf, a great group of guys, a great store. I mean, I was super surprised at the quality of that store. You know, the Germans are definitely hungry. Obviously, they've got the 3 plant thing going on.
Well, and they just legalized this year too.
Yeah,
man.
which is why I was there.
That was big stuff.
And that's why I was there. No, it wasn't a cannabis-centric show, but that's why we were there poking around.
Okay.
And this was before the vote. So we were, you know, just kind of wanting to be there. And we were, you know, quite frankly, aside from like a couple other ones you see that are kind of crossover companies, we were really the only company that had anything cannabis in our booth, anything picture-wise, anything. And it was like, you definitely get that like side eye where people were like,
Was it DLI or was it?
So it would have been DLI, would also have been Dutch Garden Supplies.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it would have been New Millennium specifically, and then some of the other stuff. They've got Quest over there as well. They've got Rock Resonator. They've got a couple other things. Great White, you know, which is one that we've obviously supported for many years. So that was where my whole thing started. And then, so I was in there for a week. Then I popped over to Amsterdam. Reason being, I was actually supposed to go to Eastern Germany, meet up with some friends that I had connected with at Cannabis the year before, but there was a train strike. Yeah. So I was all the way in Western Germany. And so I talked to my good buddy Jair, and he's like, dude,
just hop on a plane.
Yeah. Wow. Train, my friend.
Right.
Yeah, Europe, baby. So I literally just hopped on the train and went up to Amsterdam, spent 3 days, 3 gloriously beautiful sunny days, which
you don't really get that.
Don't really get that. No.
How long a train ride is that?
It's like 3 hours, maybe 2 hours.
Wow. Europe's way smaller than I picture it.
Yeah.
Well, it's also where it's truly at, because I mean, Germany is, because I ended up doing the ice train all the way to Munich, which I'll talk about here in a second. It was like, wow, even at 300 kilometers an hour, that's like pretty far. That's all the way across the country. But over there, Holland's, you know, and just the Netherlands in general is obviously very small. Holland as a state, super tiny. So it's easy to pop up to Amsterdam, a few stops. And, you know, I was there, but had the opportunity to the Rice Museum, which you got to do the second time around. Night Watchman, all that, just absolutely amazing stuff.
Place is wild.
Jair took me to the windmills, which was super cool to see. Like literally saw them operating, saw a sawmill operating, saw like a paint mill operating, saw all these things. I mean, it was like, they weren't just for looks, folks. I mean, I know.
Yeah, no, they all had operations, milling wheat, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And that windmills?
Okay. So, but true, but you'd be surprised how many people don't really like listen to a word. But also all the small ones, those were pumps. So those were just pumping out dikes, right? So the big ones were what they were really using for what?
Pumping out dikes.
Anywho, hey, these are official words, dude.
Very immature. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, no, seeing literally the sawmill working, everything else, it's like, this is really incredible. And for those of you that don't know, really what truly put the Dutch on the map in a world scale was that they were the inventor of the crankshaft. And why that matters, that was basically taking horizontal power and transferring it vertically. And so they were able to make 5 ships to every 1 ship that anybody else in the world could make.
That's what made them such a huge naval power.
That's exactly it. So, and believe you me, I'm sure they kept that technology, you know, pretty tight for a long time. Also, Amsterdam had the first stock exchange. So they definitely have a couple very, very cool claims.
Well, and it's funny because when you look at the original word stock exchange, that's what they were exchanging was stock,
right?
Animal stock,
right?
You know,
again, pay attention to the word, and it's kind of crazy. Also got to meet Soma and hang out with him, you know, a good bit more. Which I mean, he's a heck of a guy, a lot of fun. And
one of the OGs,
one of the absolute OGs. Shout out to Soma, which We will get him on the show. We have talked to him about it. We talked to him again when we were about there in August. So it's going to happen all in good time, But then I took the ice train from there, which is 300 kilometers an hour. Like I'm saying, it's a real fast one. Ripped it all the way to Munich, which was a lot of fun. Had one crazy night in Munich, went to Hofbrau, pounded like 3 liters of beer.
Munich mountains out there?
There's definitely mountains. I mean, you're getting out into, Bavaria. So it's definitely hilly, mountainous. It's very pretty. Bavaria is gorgeous. But as you might think and know, I mean, you think about East Coast versus West Coast here. Well, there's obviously quite a big difference.
Supposed to be some kick-ass skiing over there.
Yeah, and then you're obviously over towards Austria and stuff as well. So you're one of these days, right? That's definitely some bucket list
stuff. That's the dream, dude. That's the dream.
And I was there at the right time, and I thought about it. But again, the train strike and everything else, I thought about popping down to Switzerland.
So you could only take certain trains.
Exactly.
With the train strike?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like one out every 3.
That's why I said plane earlier, because when you said train strike, I was like, oh, fuck.
Well, and see, I also got lucky being in Western Germany because the trains cross over, right? Because now that you have the EU, it's not like it used to be where every border you hit, they'd have to stop, do the passport thing, blah, blah, blah. Once you're in the EU, you're in the EU.
Yeah.
So they had Dutch operators that were operating into Western Germany, right? So the train strike didn't affect those lines as much either. Again, it's, it's one of those things. And you know what the crazy thing is I flew into Frankfurt and they had just had a huge strike at the airport, literally 2 days before.
I remember seeing that.
I saw thousands and thousands of cots stacked up that was like, I'm like, whoa, I was like 2 days before this.
Yeah, international travel when they're having giant strikes it's got to be nervous.
Or when you fly on, bankrupt airlines, which we'll get to that story in a bit. But that's Africa. Anyway, went over and like I said, had a blast in Munich. Met up with some cool people, scootered around. I mean, just literally stayed right downtown, right across, right around the corner from Hofbrau. Went, got me some food, got me some pretzels, got me a bunch of good German beer, and then believe it or not, flew straight from there to Tampa for the customer day. So shout out to Urban Roots.
Yeah, huge event for those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always, for me and as far as the stores goes, it's always, one of the biggest and best events, of the year for us. We've got a lot of support down there. Shout out to all our Tampa people. Again, Urban Roots. We'll be back there again on February 1st this year, 2025. I'll be out there on Saturday. I'll actually be out there for about 4 or 5 days. So if anybody is looking for commercial visits or anything like that, definitely get a hold of me. But yeah, Urban Customer Day is always, always fantastic.
A blast.
Yep. So
you see a lot of the homies there too.
Definitely see a lot of good friends, a lot of good people. So then I got back home just long enough to lick my wounds, and then flew back to Cannabis. But actually, in reality, I went and did the what was it called? The indoor AgCon, which was not really a cannabis show either in Las Vegas. So it's more of an indoor horticulture show.
That was what, like late February last year?
Yeah. So I did that with DLI specifically, and then I flew from Las Vegas straight to Cannabis.
Well, so a lot of people don't know for DLI, like, in Holland and large scale horticulture, right, as far as tomatoes, as far as chrysanthemums, stuff like that, there's hundreds of thousands of those lights.
Oh man.
There.
Yeah, no.
So that's their bread and butter.
Absolutely. Totally. So that was a good show. And then, went to Cannabis and always have a blast in Cannabis. I absolutely love Barcelona. The club scene that they have there, the food, the people, I mean, everything, I actually went to karaoke bar, and it was like the most legit karaoke bar I've ever been. I mean, I'm talking lights, the whole deal. You're up on stage. It was like, wow. So my buddy Andy, who's not in the industry anymore, but shout out to my good friend Andy out of the UK. It was his birthday and he wanted to go do some karaoke. He said, damn it, we went and did some karaoke and it was a blast. But I also got to go to Quimet. That, if anybody ever goes to Barcelona, super, super, super legit tapas place. I was able to go
tapas.
Yes. Not topless. Tapas.
No, yes. We don't want to get age gated. We do not want to get age gated.
Anyway, super cool. I'm talking like a 5-table, 10-table kind of place. Like,
that's cool.
A little stand-up deal. I think you get, maybe 45 minutes or an hour. There's always a little line out, and it's literally the owner and his daughter, and they're just slinging out the most high-quality, fantastic food. I did get to go with my good friend Danny, who's born and raised Catalan out of Barcelona. So that's a little bit of a cheat code, I'd been there once before years ago.
Having the right people makes,
and it was intimidating, dude. Like, you're looking at all this stuff, and there's a lot of different, you're on the ocean. So there's a lot of different seafoods and anchovies and things that we're just not going to see here, and so a lot of fun though to go and be adventurous. So if anybody ever gets out there, Kemet, it's right off of, it's walking distance from from downtown, from La Rambla, shit like that. But also, one of my favorite things always to do there is go to La Bucaria, which is the market downtown, the fish market, the fruit market, everything else. If you've never been there, make that an absolute.
Some of those legs.
Oh, dude, come on. Oh,
yeah, that stuff.
The Iberico, that's the best. But La Bucaria is, and I'll post a couple pictures of it, but like it's truly a cornucopia, if I could ever, like the truest sense of the word, a cornucopia of different sights, sounds, and smells right on La Rambla, right in downtown. So love Barcelona, great place.
Amazing architecture there.
Oh, well, that's, dude, you're walking in the Gothic corridor and you're just like, it's a wonderfully walkable city. It's not like Amsterdam, but Amsterdam is a whole other, animal.
That's a different beast.
I know that you also had a great trip to New York right around in that April time as well for Billy's, right?
We did the Billy's, which was Fletcher's event. Obviously, the Billy being named after the Billy goat.
Right.
We had, Eugene had Eugene had the Haze category. Really interesting what was going on in New York, just as far as 420 events. They had a big event at Washington Square that day. So like for any of you who don't know about New York, until not too long ago, they had the stop and frisk rules where people really were not openly smoking the way they are now. Like when you go into Harlem now, it just smells like weed.
Well, but they also, they said right off the bat, and I think in part because you have so many people, they said, look, if you can smoke anything, if you can smoke cigarettes here, you can smoke cannabis here.
Yeah. So Washington Square was crazy for 420, the Billy's event. Shout out to Fletch. Really well done event, really well thought out categories. Our buddy Dane from Niche actually won. I can't remember if it was the gas category, but he won with the Oishi, which was totally awesome.
Not surprised.
Shout out to Dane.
They did great work.
Not at all. In fact, he's another person that we really, want and need to interview next year, just because his history is so cool, man.
Yeah.
He's one of the OGs. He's one of the dudes that's been doing it since the 90s. And ironically enough, our history kind of crossed paths. Right. So it was like we started talking and asking some questions to each other. And I'm like, wait, do you know these people? And he's like, oh, yeah, I know those people real well, So shout out to Missoula, But yeah, no, fun event. I'm eager. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes this year. I'll be honest with you. If the unicorn poop turns out the way I want it to, it could be my entry in there, in which shout out to you for giving it to me.
Yeah, no doubt. Happy to do it. We also took a little spin with Jair through NorCal, saw Terp Mansion. Shout out to Luca Terp Mansion. Sure. That dude is cranking up there. I know he was just out with the whole Third Gen family farm and doing the Ego Clash. And, one of these years I'd love to get out that, or even, interview some folks out of that camp, but that's always a top tier event. So shout out to some of the stuff they're doing out there. Also Northern Roots there in Reading, always been big supporters of our guys. I know that even Yacht Club out there is a couple guys I've been working with for a while. Keep it going, guys. It's definitely one of the things. It's a bit of a dying breed, which is kind of what we're going to even talk about a little bit, about where the industry's at, where things have gone, et cetera, here shortly. But we also got to take, after that,
big trip to Amsterdam.
Big trip, full team trip. All of us were over there. Can't get into specifics. What happens in Amsterdam? Better well stay in Amsterdam.
It's crazy even for me. You guys are telling me stories. I was like, you what? I want to go next time.
That's a wild city. That second time I got to spend time with Soma, which was, absolutely mind blowing. What we saw garden wise.
Not even real. Next level.
Yeah, these places are so big that people are riding bicycles around them.
Totally.
To get around, and it just it was really refreshing because, I've been cultivating on a commercial scale in Colorado since like 2009, 2010. And to see the double enders and the rolling benches and to see, hey man, like Jair is a big part of bringing that to the United States and it really
connected some dots even for me. You know what I mean? Like it really did. I was like, oh man, this is literally what he's been
100%. My mentor, Phil, Phil Haig, he definitely.
You mean from The Hague?
Exactly. It was actually funny because I hit him up after that, and I was like, dude.
He's like, yeah, no shit.
But it was, he grew up growing poinsettias, growing chrysanthemums and stuff like that, and it all made complete sense.
Well, the way that they had a trellis, the way they were doing the irrigation, the way that the lighting was set up, I mean, it was, but then also the high level of efficiency. And that's where you saw, like, whether even just things as basic as rolling benches, which was not standard in this industry, until we had even the first round of commercial, the legacy stuff, dude, that was never a thing yet. You know what I mean? It really did take that multi-year education process of taking some people out of horticulture that had seen that, which none of us or very few of us in this industry had truly seen that at that point. So that was absolutely amazing. Got a couple of incredible boat rides. Shout out to the DLI guys out there. You guys are amazing hosts.
Awesome squad.
I can't say enough. You guys are obviously always welcome here. We have a blast with you.
The fixtures are all hand assembled, bro.
And we saw it. We saw it with our own eyes.
Yeah.
My own eyes. I've seen it,
bro. It was incredible.
I've been told,
individually tested.
I've seen it.
Yeah, no, it was, and we're still making HPS.
And I would like to send a sincere apology to the American Hotel there in downtown Amsterdam. Not sure if we'll ever be allowed back.
We didn't mess it up too bad.
I'm just kidding. Hey, we had a good time. They're like, anyway, again, can't get into specifics. And really it was DLI's fault for putting us up in the American Hotel, which ended up being the joke. The other joke of the whole week is, how far is it, Gabe?
It's 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Everything's 20 minutes. It's all 20. How far is it? And that would just be
20 minutes by car, 20 minutes by foot. Oh. You're better off going by foot.
Way better off.
20 minutes.
If you haven't, do yourself a favor. If you haven't actually just pulled up an aerial shot of Amsterdam, you'll see Grand Central Station. Then you'll see the way that you have these concentric circles.
It's wild because it's a semicircle. If you go back historically, from the 1600s and 1500s when the Dutch were out conquering the world because they had
all those extra boats.
You know what I mean? It was very much based on trade, in which it's funny for us being out here in the West because our cities are all grids. Right. So it's real easy.
Which is the Spanish colonial 100%. System. Yeah.
And so.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Look at, when
you have this city with nothing but bent streets, it's like.
Looks like a spider web.
And the thing is,
it really does.
You think you're walking straight, but you're not. So you can see if you don't take that one left.
Yeah.
So you're getting farther and farther away from it.
Yeah.
I tried to by memory get to Jair's house, which I could do it now, but I can do it now.
But the first couple days.
I got real close the second time I went, and it was a 20-minute walk from Grand Central Station, and then I get and I'm like, I think that's it. Nope, that's not it. I think that's it. Nope, that's it. I think that it. Nope. And then I finally look it up. I was farther away than when I started.
I'll tell you what was really cool, and you don't really realize it when you first get into the country, but the fact that we took a boat from Aalsmeer up to Amsterdam.
Well, and
that was really cool.
And
man.
How silly were we? And I'll say I'm thinking boat. I'm thinking you got to go a distance. Well, it must mean ocean going vessel.
Right. No, it's canals throughout the entire country.
It's not just Amsterdam. It's the whole thing. I mean, the amount of people that actually live on the water there is insane.
Yeah.
So that was truly a lifetime trip, and shout out to 5'8" and all the guys that brought us there. There she is. What a gorgeous, gorgeous place.
Yeah. It really.
And those are like apartments, right? Some people will live.
A lot of those are livers. Yeah.
So on the water, people will live in apartment style boats. It's one of my dream things of spend a summer in Amsterdam on the water.
Even the UK actually has a full canal system, and people don't realize this. And you can get the long boats, and it's a specific type. And same thing. Those are pretty specific boats.
If you remember the Adam Dunn episode this year, they lit one of those boats on fire growing weed in there.
Whoops. Whoops.
If you haven't seen that episode,
it is a good one.
It's a great one.
And that was early on too, when we didn't have near as many subscribers. So that's a fun one to go back.
Adam Dunn, I vote him as far as cannabis, most interesting man in the world.
Well,
when Robert Downey Jr. is your stepbrother,
how is it? Dude, that little drop. I look at Gabe and I was like, fuck did he just
say he punched Robert Downey Jr. in the face?
He was my stepbrother. He was my stepbrother.
Crazy. So check out those episodes.
There is some good early episodes. I think that's a great actual time to kind of suggest that too. Obviously, we're just kind of pining around here, guys, enjoying the the New Year's Eve, having a virtual drink with you guys. And the reality is we've had a lot of stuff that's gone on this year that's gone well, and we got even more planned for you.
60. I think we're at 65, 64. 165 episodes, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah,
Definitely the ones I suggest. Like, go back, find. I'll put them in the description. Go watch New Millennium Neil.
That's
one that got
age gated for
it got
no
looked over.
reason.
Yeah, that one was great. Go back and check out the ones about the NFL with Eugene.
I was going to say that was a very early.
Those were amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, there were so many good ones. And then remember, we got taken down the vegetable episode. I don't know if you guys are into growing veggies, but these guys grow great veggies, and somehow our veggie episode got taken down.
I'm going to tell you right now, my
weird
tomatoes, because after we got back from Amsterdam, I had an obsession with burrata and tomatoes.
Happens.
And it really does. It's a thing. And but my tomatoes were the best tomatoes I ate all year, and all we gave them this summer was the Magnificent Garden.
Mag Garden.
I'm telling you,
you're going to see a lot more Mag Garden this year, guys.
So much
Jeff Lowe and Failed and New Millennium Neil.
I know that we still got to work on getting Jeff in here.
That's one. And in fact, we have kind of a wish list that we're going to go over, which I'm not sure if he made it, but he is on there. We may not got him on this list.
Right.
So the last actual, I guess, event besides Vegas, which we'll kind of treat Vegas as kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
But we did do the mashup with Michigan Matt there in Michigan. Go
Super
figure.
Cool. Yeah, that was a fun event.
He's got more events going on. I know the next one's on, I believe, January 30th. We've got, obviously, we're going to be out of town. We've got a Florida and an East Coast trip that we're doing, but I know that's something that's going to continue. If you guys are interested in that, you're in the Michigan area.
Grambo might stop by. You never know.
Ooh, now that might be something worth looking at.
There you go.
So shout out also Maxwell Blasco, good buddy as well that I've got to hang around, various places in the world. So good seeing you as well, brother. And, also Dankums, Dankums is always great to see.
Mm-hmm.
Saw him in Vegas as well. And I mean, just a real humble, down to earth guy and a great grower. Not going to lie.
I can't remember. Was it Mitten Masters, Pink Runts we smoked?
Yes, it was Mittens, Pink Runts, and it was great.
Yeah,
that was great. Yeah. And Mitten's been running DLIs as well. He's got a couple rooms of DLIs up. So, and also, like I said, the reality is Dankum, that's one I'd like to try and get on the show at some point in time too. So,
you know what? Looking back at this year has been one of my big things. HPS is back.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well,
it never left, honestly. But
look. Yeah. Look, we never went anywhere. It's kind of like I've seen a couple other people talking about additives and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of like, we never went anywhere. We've been here the whole time.
Everyone's talking LED, and I realized, dude.
Interestingly enough, I think and we'll come back to the 3 or 4 states, but that's actually a really great segue because one of the reasons, and there's without question, one of the reasons that LED is taken off the way it is because of the rebates.
Rebates are huge.
There's a lot of people out there, and I'm not going to name names or anything else, but there's a lot of people that have bought LEDs from us that had said, hey, if there weren't rebates, what would you do? It's by HPS.
Yeah.
Right. And so let me also remind you guys, we have it all. We're not just an LED company. We're not just an HPS company. We do have one of two of the last German-made high-quality DE bulbs that's actually 2,100 micromoles, not some of this, Chinese 1,800 micromoles crap. So it's like, look, the rebates thing has been very interesting. And for those of you who don't know about it, obviously you have a large draw on the power grid when you have a lot of these type of facilities going up. And so just like we saw in Amsterdam, or really more specifically in Holland in the greenhouses, they're pushing LED lighting heavily because they have a massive pull on their power grid. Mm-hmm. So what they're going to do as a power company say, okay, we're going to give you a credit based on the efficiency, of your unit. So it's in principle, it's definitely interesting to see. And we've seen a lot of LED sales. The difference is though, would there, and the question is, I guess, or the thought is, would it really, would the amount of LED sales gone out? It did without rebates. And I mean, I think unequivocally it's no, because they're also quite expensive, as you may know.
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot more. And they're 3-4x times.
The degrading is too. When you guys cite all the numbers on like how they degrade year after year, I was a LED raving it to the street. Oh, it's the best thing.
Oh, we all
ever.
drank the Kool-Aid though.
Not since carbon filters has game changed so much.
And Yair just shared that article that Osram put out about degradation. I mean, it's not, look, man, this isn't stuff that we're making up.
It's advertised on their website. The chip that you get, like it's literally, the linear degradation is advertised. Mm-hmm. And if you do things like overdrive them and stuff like that, which this is not what this episode's about, but if you do things like that, it's going to be bright out of the box. You're going to crush it for a couple of runs, but the degradation is going to fall off an absolute cliff. So anyway, We got everything. It's really more
it'll
about
be
an
interesting. It'll be interesting to see with the changes in politics as to whether those rebates will stick around, because the one thing people need to realize is states are tapping into federal rebate programs.
Funding. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if we have, possible efficiency groups that are going to go around, that money's gone.
Well, it's in.
So I think it'll change the landscape, and I think you may see a surge in people buying HBSs. It's funny, we made those calls. We made a bunch of those cold calls earlier this year, and Washington. There were a bunch of people I talked to who were like, "Yeah, I'm using double-endeds and I'll never switch,
and I'm never going anywhere else.
Get off my phone."
Now, but what I'll also say is, though, Washington had one of the most complicated power grids I've ever seen.
They get oddly enough, I think, because there's a bunch of federal dams.
It's federal dams and reservation land.
Yep.
So it's both of those.
Yep.
And so you have this really, but then you go to another state like Colorado has like 2 power companies? One?
Two.
I think.
BlackRock down in the Springs, in which they suck, and then Excel.
But that's it.
Yeah.
Right. You went there. I want to say there's 30 or 40 or something, and there's actually
we got some good light sales in Denver.
3,300 power companies nationwide. So anyway, just a little bit of a touch on rebates. That has been a big push this year. We did see 3 or 4 states actually. And really for the first time ever, in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure for the first time ever where we've had a significant amount of cannabis bills in states that are on the docket that less than half that failed. I mean, normally
3 out of 4 failed. Normally
would be the other way around. 3 out of 4 would make it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's also showing a little bit of the climate that, not everywhere is always going to necessarily do it, but we also don't grow strawberries in every state.
Also, the homegrown component. I know in Florida, that's really the angle that kneecapped that. You think Florida probably would have gone if they had homegrown?
No, because of the corporate investment in trying to shoot that down, and because they were going against the homegrown.
So I think it's a 2-pronged thing. Number one, I think if there was a homegrown component, there would have been a much better shot at it. Mm-hmm. I do think that there was a grassroots effort to say, and I've always said, and I've said it on the show and I'll say it again, I don't believe in a legalization law that there isn't homegrown, that there isn't hemp, and that there isn't ability for university research. I just don't believe in it. Otherwise, to me, that's not legalization. Hell, I don't even think you should be able to have plant counts and whatnot, but you know what? I'll make some concessions somewhere.
So oddly enough, they had the preliminary hearings when we were in Vegas.
Right.
And then they moved everything back to, I believe, the middle of March. So that's really, and they're still taking comments. They're still trying to get people.
But here's the other thing, though, too, Josh. It had to be 60%. Colorado did 52. Florida 2 times now has done like 56.
And Florida's like 3 different states. It's like you got the Hispanic population south, you got the old people up north, you got the regular
people
squares.
Were not happy that True Leave and
I want to say
put all that money into it.
When we say a lot of money, we say like hundreds of millions.
125 or 175 million out of True Leave alone.
So I mean,
people were not psyched about it, and I can tell you right now, stocks in both those companies has tanked since the election. I mean, a lot of the cannabis have stopped.
Well, and I mean, here's the reality. A lot of people had, really geared up for that, but whatever. I mean, reality is if you really want to go, to a good spot down there, go check out Ideal. The boys down there at Ideal are absolutely crushing it.
Yep.
Great product.
Our buddy P-Buds in Florida.
Yeah, P-Buds absolutely down there as well. So, and the thing is, I think the people that just went super hard on it, expecting recreational definitely have lost their ass a little bit on it. But hey, that's kind of what happens. And unfortunately, through all this too, we've watched this year more and more stores shut down.
Yeah, crazy.
And the reality is we still 100% support the stores. We still want our products in stores. If you're out there and you run a store, you work in a store and you want our stuff, by all means, we want you in there. The only reason we've even opened up our own website was to fill in the gaps.
But honestly, if you're close to a store, I'd prefer you go into that store and say, hey, I buy New Millennium. I buy this. Can you bring it in? I guarantee we'll be able to get it.
It says right on the website, we aim to be in your local grocery store, but if not, come over to jugdealers.shop.
And in reality is, guys, it's for us. It's we don't get more one way or another. It's 6 or one, half a dozen other. We're just trying to get you product. Period.
Well, and that's where we're just
dealing jugs, guys.
That's the genesis of the Jug Dealers right there.
Right.
There's the fact, that like, hey man, we're just trying to help you make your garden better, whether it's the products we have, whether it's the knowledge, whether it's the guests, every time we do something with an episode, Jaron's always like, hey man, how is our listener going to be a better person after this episode? And regardless of what the episode is, if it's information or products or people, we are definitely focused on, hey, how is our listener going to come away from this? And not for nothing, there's 9 times out of 10 where we come out of that episode and go, wow, fuck, I didn't know that.
Wow, I learned something, you know?
So, and
I do think, just we'll kind of even roll some of these things. Obviously, there's been some interesting, things that have been going on with pardons. We have a new administration coming in. Yeah. I think there's been a lot of scared, investment, especially in this industry, not understanding where things are going. But for the record, I think that happens any election cycle. Mm-hmm. People are going to be kind of scared with things. So I think we have possible descheduling in this administration. I think we have
very possible.
I think that the reality is we need to do something to make banking easier, and we need to make it to where you're growing where you're supposed to grow. I just said it a little bit ago. Where do we grow strawberries at in the U.S. commercially? Florida and California. Why? Because that's the only place that makes sense to do it. We don't need to grow herb everywhere. We don't need to grow herb in the harshest climates out there. Finding something like, I'll throw it out there, like a San Luis Valley or something like that. High alpine, incredibly good quality sun, and it just so happens to be at the same latitude as the Hindu Kush Valley. Isn't that something? Anyway, I think once we allow it to become, more of a high-end horticultural crop that is looking at it from just a little bit higher level, not saying we have to be able to do this everywhere but where can we do this the best? Where's, the most skilled labor? Where's the power the right price? Where's the sun the best quality? So we're going to see a lot of changes, when it comes to that and technology. And, I think you're going to see more and more hybrid situations. We deal with a lot more glasshouse and hybrid stuff now than we ever have before.
100%. Yeah.
You're
seeing more of it. And I think, look, on a personal level, I think it grows better. I think it grows better flower.
Well, I think
there's no light. There's no light. It's made by anybody.
We're all just trying to emulate that.
That mimics the sun, and it's funny because Gene and I got into it on that topic a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, look, man, like all these lights have specific, it doesn't matter whose, but they all have specific targets, and they're going to try and emulate part of the sun, but none of them can emulate everything that comes out of the sun. And then that changes throughout the year. So, I mean,
right. As it goes up and down in the sky,
right now,
so how's it refracting through the atmosphere?
We just had summer solstice, the sun here is very, very far south. I've had measurements in Durango where you're looking at 500 micromole out of the sun. You know what I mean? Whereas in the summer, it's 3,000.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
And that's something that even when we talked about, the hierarchy of importance, that light and environment being tied for 1 and 2. And when we go in those places, like when we were in the cut flower spot, it felt so amazingly comfortable in there, right? It was so stable environment wise. And then it had incredible sun supplemented with the light to keep it at the exact micromoles that they wanted.
Does the sun get up to 3,000 ppfd? I'm always interested.
More.
Really?
And it depends on where you're at. But when, if
you'd be surprised what you see in the shade sometimes.
And again, one of my things I think that we're really going to start seeing in the future, I kind of, we're not talking about BizCon yet, but it was one of the things that actually kind of frustrated me out there was you're going to have, people were talking about lighting recipes and spectrum and stuff like that. You're going to end up having specific lighting recipes for genetics the same way you have feed schedules. And
we've talked a lot about this, even, the selection pressures and how, spectrum is obviously a bit of a selection pressure. And if you're going to change that, I mean, even, shout out to Professor P. I remember when he told me, he's like, dude, the original Foco cough came with a recipe. You run with this in peat moss with age old. It turned out it was a horror from magnesium.
That was the answer. I've always been obsessed with, like, what happened to the diesel that I loved? And that was the answer. It's not grown in peat under GH.
It was HPS. Yeah.
It's a big part of it for sure. Yeah. And I mean, and I've had people hit me up lately going, hey, I'm growing sour D under LEDs. Just doesn't look the same. And I'm like, it's not going to.
We can't break science here, folks. We can't break science. But we have talked a lot about that, which I do. That is, obviously, those are very endearing subjects to our heart, which is why we continually come back to them.
That's why we get passionate
and don't worry, you'll hear it again. But let's just touch on BizCon a little bit. We don't need to spend a lot of time. We did get back, obviously, MJ BizCon, Las Vegas. Vegas, love or hate it. It's one of those things. It's a great opportunity to hang out with our people. It's a great time to see our people in the industry.
It's kind of our year end. I think if you're in the industry, it's kind of a year end end hang for everybody.
Yep. Now, for anybody that wasn't there, again, they had 2 halls. The cultivation hall was on the side. It was even smaller. What's going to happen with it next year? We can get reabsorbed back in the packaging hall. It's been weird, right? Because the cultivation side was huge.
They
The
would
packaging
just put
was
us all
small.
in one big hall.
I think that's what's going to have to happen. But this is what's happened. Cultivation was the big side. Packaging was small. Then over time, it's literally flip-flopped. And it's, it's people putting mock dispensaries and displays and packaging and all this. It's like the packaging hall was crazy, but they didn't necessarily do us any favors. But you can see even there looking at our booth was absolutely jamming. I would say one of the most jamming booths we had at BizCon on our side, on the cultivation side. I do think they're going to have to put things together a little bit more. For the first time, they did do seed sales, but I also think that they missed the boat on that.
It should have been it should have been in the cultivation hall.
Dude, that was so stupid.
Bro.
And by the way, I'm not even saying that the people who did it, because I know Sherbinski was one of the people that set up, I'm not even saying that they had anything to do with that. I doubt they did. It was like, hey, you can do it and here's where it's going to be. It was stupid where it was at. And I even had customers of mine that were planning to come and see me, got stuck over in the seed area and didn't make it over because it was all the way across a huge convention hall. Yeah. That was kind of bullshit. So I
won't fight you on that.
So that was stupid.
Like I was saying before.
Ooh, look at that. Ooh, boy.
For me, it was.
And shout out to Doc Holliday and his partner for getting us that cool video.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Absolutely.
For me, it was definitely, it was a lot of.
Who's that guy?
Like people were more interested in the shiny bag than what was in the shiny bag. And I think that's disappointing because, there's, like it's still about the weed. It doesn't matter the Mylar.
Well, to us, but again, you also have somebody that if their job is the marketing coordinator, the marketing manager, and then they may not,
And then Josh came out with that joint machine, like 5-6 years ago,
right?
He couldn't even take pictures of the damn thing, and now there's 50 different iterations of these $100,000 joint rolling.
Sure.
They'll make donuts. They'll do all kinds of
what
stuff.
I didn't, and I don't necessarily use it like using, the Brads and Chads reference, but we'll go ahead and throw it out there. The reality is, though, I didn't see this year, the conversations I had were all real. Mm-hmm. Even though I saw a lot less retail stores there, for obvious reasons, a lot of them aren't even there anymore. But the conversations I had were real, which for years and years, it was, hey, man, I've got this farm in Tennessee and I've got all this acreage and I don't know what to do. Where do I start? And it's like, holy crap. And I had that conversation over and over again early on. And fortunately, at this point, you know what I mean? It was a lot less like that. So even though the traffic was lower, the people that we had,
more quality interactions for sure.
Now, one of the other things we wanted to talk about is just, kind of touch on some of what we thought were the really great interviews we had this year. And we already talked about, P-Bud was an early one that didn't get a lot of play. I would suggest going back and looking at. Eugene was a very early one that I would suggest going back and looking at. Fletch was a fantastic episode.
That was a lot of fun.
But
getting him in studio is tough.
Right,
sure.
Right. But even the boys, shout out to Jarrell and Danny and Hollywood Undead. That was a lot of fun. I know they just got off the European tour.
When you first told me about that, I was like, was this guy like related to weed shit in any way, shape, or form? And then you start hearing the story and you're like, oh,
okay.
When he's like a famous musician, he's like, yeah, I'm in my grow room more than I play guitar. Guitar sucks.
Well,
I like
it's funny
weed plants.
because a lot of it, just like I used to grow weed to support my snowboarding habit. A lot of these guys,
right,
are trying to come up in the world, and you think about what bands make, but the reality is when you're a small band and you're playing in a little venue on a Tuesday night, and you got to split that money and pay for gas in the van and all the rest of that stuff. So it's really refreshing he was a cool dude.
No, that was fun. And I honestly, odds are they'll be on tour through Denver again some point. I wouldn't be surprised if we get him on again. I know he's actually building out a badass wedding venue and whatnot out in Oklahoma. The guy's all over the place. They got a bunch of tours going on, but yeah, shout out to the boys at Hollywood Undead, specifically Jarrell and Danny for getting you guys in studio. Neil, that's one. I'm glad you brought that up too, because that episode did not get the play that it should have.
I was so bummed on that one because Neil is just dropping bombs.
And I don't.
Yes, this blue thumbnail, the masterclass with America's top cannabis growing expert. There's no BS. It's still going. It's got 6,000, but that should be a popular.
That should be a 10. That should be 10.
I mean, the guy that designed New Millennium Nutrients, it's easily the best nutrient line on earth, and he's the guy that designed it. I get to talk to a lot of smart people, and after 5 minutes of talking with Neil, I was like, "You're like an alien. You're so smart."
The conversations you have with him, and not for nothing, that is the phone number on the bottle.
Yeah. If he doesn't answer, Bo will, and most likely you'll get kicked over to me.
That's
anyway.
the one good part about that episode not getting seen. He's like, that's my number on the bottle. Call me. And we're like, no.
So definitely check out the Neil episode. We already mentioned Fletch. We just did the South Africa. That one's getting a little more traction. Again, shout out to Canna Club and Herman and Bertie and everybody out there. And I will be there. I'll be there again in May is the plan. We should have, like, honestly, right now, products are in process of getting registered. We should have stuff on the water within a couple of months, believe it or not. A lot of hard work out there. So a lot of hard work that's been done out there. So we're going to keep doing all that. I did want to mention, guys, one of the ways that we opened up this whole thing was going through every single nutrient one by one, every macro, micros, the free elements, everything else. I would suggest going back into that. We've also done, enzymes, microbes, bacteria, mycorrhiza.
Yeah, the rhizosphere. That was a super fun.
That was a super fun
and
episode.
the rhizosheath,
Yes, which new term it turns out, right? So those are just kind of a couple things. I mean, we really, it's cool, man, because we have like a body of work now, that I'm excited to keep adding to.
As we go back through here, though, it's like you guys have still been watching them. Like, look at this, Adam Dunn's at 10,000 each. Like,
nice.
Great.
And guys, if you have any ideas, please, we are always here. If you got something, in fact, I know we're gonna do, and we're gonna talk actually about some ideas for next year. If you got them, throw them out there. Don't be scared. Can't guarantee it, but hey, you never know.
Dude, shout out to Paul. I think he's down in North Carolina, but he actually wanted us to talk about phosphites and phosphates. So at some point, we're going to address that probably in the questions episode.
There you go.
I was thinking, I was like, this is probably not enough for a full episode, but I still want to address it.
But we want to have a piece of it.
Paul, we do see you.
Paul, we see you.
He was actually an agronomist, in which I was like, maybe we need to get you on the show.
Hey, you know what? Seriously though, speaking of getting people on the show, some of these are booked already, and then some of this is a bit of a wish list, right? So we'll start right off the top. We already talked about Jeff Lowenfels. Yep. That's somebody we have a direct contact. He's just very, very busy. He's all over the place, and I'd love to have him in studio. Lives in Alaska.
Yeah, we do the out of studio if we have to. But we would always prefer to film in studio. It just is a more comfortable setting.
Yep. I am going to get my friend, which he was already supposed to be on, but then unfortunately got sick. But my good friend Dan Banks, who's an entomologist that specializes in cannabis, he's actually out of Puerto Rico currently. Has worked extensively in the Colorado market as well as East Coast. Guy is a brilliant guy, and really excited to get him on. You'll be seeing that soon. Diamond Mine.
Mine. Yeah, he does not do interviews.
He does do interviews.
But he's, living soil live resin guy, and he's a single source living soil live resin guy. So, I mean,
we like to talk about it all, guys.
He's had his beds 58 turns. So I think he's had them for over 10 years of living soil beds. A real badass. So I can't wait.
That'd be fun.
I can't wait to talk about his gardening practices. We're going to get Billy Graham in studio. Yep. Billy Graham, the tissue culture.
Yeah. So
master.
Obviously Bill Graham of Grateful Dead fame has been dead for a while. I just like to make that very clear.
And not Reverend Billy Graham.
Which is also dead, I believe.
He's dead.
Anyway, it is our good friend Bill Graham. He's a tissue culture guy, and he does it. He breaks it down. He makes it easy. Makes it to where you can truly do it yourself. Whether it's for genetic preservation, which is going to be more like nodal cutting style, or a higher level. And we'll talk about all about this with him. But tip meristem, if you're talking about actually cleaning genetics, things like that. Bill will be on for sure. But then another one that you got us quite potentially hooked up with in Vegas. What you got there, bud?
We're gonna have Black Leaf Lance from First Smoke of the Day on.
Awesome.
I definitely
shout out Smoke.
I talked to him a bunch and said, hey, I really appreciate what you guys do, but I'd love to give you a platform to tell your story, because I don't feel like I know a lot about you.
Right. No, so shout out to First Smoke. We see you guys. Yeah, we see what you're doing out there, and we definitely appreciate what you guys are putting out in the community as well. Soma, we already talked about it. It's going to happen, especially now that we got our remote stuff going better. Like it's easy peasy.
I'm going to say stay tuned for there's a certain NFL player coming up that's also exciting for me. But man, Soma, this guy, beautiful human, cannabis legend, Amsterdam. Like, if you thought Adam Dunn episodes were cool, I think the Soma episode.
Yeah, his story.
Gabe, you get emotional talking about Soma.
Yeah, he's incredible. His story is absolutely awesome.
It's a whole. He's
been in Amsterdam for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, a couple reasons, but anyway. Also, Anna, our good friend Cam and Cat Cali. Originally, Cam was the best little shop in Denver.
It was originally Colorado.
It was. But even she kept that Cam in Cali, right? But dude, she's an absolute beast. She's running thousands of lights. Huge shout out to Anna. Had a great interview with the guys over there at what was that? Grow World? Is that the one that?
She was on First Smoke.
Yeah. Also for Smoke, but then also at MJ Biz right across.
MJ Biz.
Yeah. So obviously she's a rock star. We'll get her in studio. She's back in Colorado quite a bit, but a personal friend of both Gabe and I's.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history there that I'm not going to get into, but our paths crossed a lot.
Fridays, that's where you were to get the freshest, best herb in the city. So
anyhow,
she had it. I'm really looking forward to getting Golden Coast Dave on here. He's another OG. He's been running gear that, his father just passed away, but he's been running gear that he got from his dad years and years ago. So he's got some real OG stuff, has some really cool stories, of just kind of the way things used to be. One big one I'm working on, and I'm having Eugene try and help me. We got fingers crossed on this one.
Put good energy into the universe for this one.
Really going to work on getting Ricky Williams here. Seeing him out in Vegas with Eugene and Al and Greta on stage, just talking about their story and the professional sports and how it affected them.
Yeah,
Ricky's story was great, so I definitely am working real hard. I just happened to have it pulled
up right here. So if you see this thumbnail, the NFL Cannabis right there, it's got 800 views. The video next to it has 44,000. Hey, Juggernauts, go back and watch that video for
True.
Check it out.
Eugene's a real one.
Yeah,
Phenotype Farmer Nick. Yep. He's done a ton of different things. Worked with DNA. Worked with a bunch of other people. Really, one of the founders of GTI.
Somebody we respect a lot.
Sure. Unbelievable wealth of information. I think you guys will really enjoy him. Drew Greco he's one of the OGs in Denver, out of the Phil Haig camp, done a lot of different things. He's running greenhouses in Vegas right now. Really cool situation he's in. We're going to talk to him a bunch about some of his practices, because he's one of the smarter ones, in-house genetics, gene traders, those guys, both really good. Michigan, East Coast stuff. In-house is full of amazing information. Really smart guy. And another big one we're trying to get on, Dr. Mark Scaldone. He's got a bunch of different cannabis patents, just as far as extracts and stuff like that. Really a leader when it comes to science and knowledge, especially in the BHO tip.
Sure, yeah.
So we're going to have him drop some knowledge on our listeners as well. Chris Cassis, the real OG Cushman, you guys heard him talked about in the Fletcher episode, but he is the real OG Cushman. He's got a crazy story. And then, a lot he's done.
Yeah. And then last but not least, we definitely had a chance to sit down with Danny Danko in Vegas as well. I know he's got his own podcast, but hasn't been putting out a lot of content recently. Definitely is interested in coming on. So that's one I'm interested in. I'm definitely interested in getting that one on. So it was a pleasure chatting with you in Vegas, Danny. And I hope to get you either in studio or remotely here real soon. If there's any other questions, or hey, look, if there's somebody out there and you think you've got a great story, or even more importantly, if you think you've got some great information to bring to our community, please bring it up. The reality is that's our biggest focus. It's not necessarily getting the stories, which the stories are great. And I like having the stories be a part of it.
It's a mix.
But we're trying to give you guys good information. We're trying to bring people in that are experts in certain areas so that we can give you the best information possible. We're getting here to the end. We want to round it up. Just give you a couple of little topics that we think we're going to be throwing around for 2025. You're going to see it drying and curing. We're going to be doing a lot more work in fulvic acid and some of the reactions that happen with fulvic acid, and truly how all the mechanisms in that work. We're going to go back and touch again on the free elements.
Yeah, we never really did just a dedicated episode.
So
of the free elements.
That's something that we kind of looked back at. And when you talk about like what's really plant food,
it's 92% of the plant.
It's kind of interesting. So, and then again, like we said, anything else you guys want, please throw it out there, guys. From the Jug Den, thank you so much. Appreciate your guys' time. Thanks for all the views. Thanks for all the subscribers. We will see you next year in 2025.
And if you guys want us to come to your events, this is a thing we've all talked about as Jug Dealers. Instead of just coming as New Millennium, we want to come to more cannabis events. So reach out.
Same thing. We're actually going to be on the East Coast, like we said, beginning of February. So if you want us to come through your grow, check it out, lights, nutrient, whatever.
Very first week of February, East Coast, we'll be hitting it up.
I know a lot of people are shy and they're like, oh, I should have asked. No, ask. We will come.
Yeah.
The guys travel everywhere. So
we do it. I think you got a little bit of a taste of that here at the beginning of the episode. But again, guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really, this has been quite a journey, and it's something that we plan on continuing to do. However, we couldn't do it without you, all the juggernauts out there. So till next year, peace out.
Peace and love.